It's going to be roughly 5 minutes, hopefully, to ask him any questions. So please hold back until then, because we are on a tight schedule. Gav again and a colleague will be floating around as well, so feel free to approach him after the talk.
Cool. Brilliant. Gav. Right, thank you very much. Welcome to Agile World with a little chat about Agile testing techniques. Just a quick little bit about Test People. We're quite an innovative technical testing consultancy, experts in automation and performance engineering, but you can talk to me about that later. I just wanted to put that out there. Give a little bit of qualification about myself. I actually used to be a developer. I had a computer science degree. I mastered in the program of Ada, which is brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Whoever decided to give me Ada was terrible. Could have given me something a lot more useful. I was then a developer in VB. I wasn't a very good developer in VB, unfortunately. I was all right. I wrote really high quality code. That led me into the world of testing, where I've gone through automation, performance testing, working in quite a few Agile projects, test manager, test architect, and now, obviously, with the Test People. So, Agile projects worked in... This presentation itself is about... most of the Agile projects I've worked in have been in very large organisations. Large organisations typically are the best at creating the most problems for themselves. Typically, when I get a phone call, someone goes, "We've been doing Agile for 6 months, and we need to do some Agile testing." And I go, "Oh, God, you've been doing Agile for 6 months, and you've not even thought about doing Agile testing?" It's usually when they have plenty of problems. What they should have done is they should have been speaking to Cake Solutions in the first instance, and they would have actually taken into account things like testing as part of their part of what they do. Okay, quick straw poll. Who's actually new to Agile? Just stick your hands up. Who's actually, okay, cool. So of those who's got actually a test team or actually currently working in Agile, you've got your testers integrated into your teams? Cool, a few? Okay. Kind of, yeah, well there's that. Who's got a test team sort of working outside of the Agile team? They work in Agile projects, sort of.
Come in and out.
Yeah, come in and out and get involved. So, and who doesn't do any testing whatsoever? That is brilliant, thank God for that. Okay, right, so a little bit about this presentation. So, hopefully what you'll get out of this is some real-world examples, some classroom examples. I will be bringing a book out which everybody should read on Agile testing because it's absolutely brilliant, and I'll talk about that later. We'll be talking about people, which is one of the most important parts of Agile. It is hugely important. And basically, and then the management of those people, and then actual testing techniques, and then I'll bring that to a close. I mean, Mr. Vader there, he's a product owner. He was probably on the end of one of the largest defects of all in Star Wars. They hadn't done any testing. They hadn't done anything at all. And basically, I think testing earlier would have found the defect, and he wouldn't have found himself on the end of a massively destroyed Death Star, unfortunately. So apologies for that. I am a massive Star Wars buff. Okay, right. So why do we test? Could anyone give me any sort of example? Why do we test? Why do you all test? Anyone want to volunteer that? Nobody knows why we test.
Discover bugs after refactoring.
Discovery of bugs. Anyone else?
You don't know it works unless you've tested it.
You don't know it works unless you've tested it? Yeah, absolutely.
To validate the criteria.
Validate the criteria, absolutely. Me, personally, I think they're all valid. Some of those are byproducts of testing, but there's one fundamental reason why you test: to gather information on risk, which is exactly what your chap here said. You want to basically understand why and what your development, what you've been doing in your development, and why, you know, what information am I going to put out to my customer, my product owner, and say, you know, can he make a decision with confidence whether he can go live? And that is quality throughout. Do I need testers in Agile? Well, there are a number of conflicting information. You know, we could have all our developers doing all our testing. That's fairly valid, and developers should be doing testing, should be committed to quality. But generally, take the example of say a footballer who and he washes his own car. Now, does he want to become the best car washer in the world, or does he want to become the best footballer and spend all his time doing that? He'll pay someone else to do some car washing. So it's actually having if you have someone like experts who do all the testing, all the development, all the technical analysis, its specialisation is actually one of the reasons why you probably do need testing in Agile. They bring a different mindset. It's like the rule of three, having your analyst, your developer, and your tester. It actually gives you a lot more interaction on product pieces of the product and talking about pieces of the product. There is also that testers are a bit of a weird bunch as well. They have an innate attitude of looking and finding and critiquing products. It's actually very, very different to what your developers will do, who want to solve a technical problem. Some developers do have very, very core good skills in testing, but they actually don't enjoy that part of their role. And at the end of the day, we actually all want to actually derive some enjoyment out of our roles. So and then that's where testers can bring a lot of good stuff to your projects. Conflicts of emotional interest. If your developers are actually doing all your testing, they actually want to keep hold of it, and they go, well, my product's exactly how I thought it should be designed. How you thought it should be designed may not be the right technical implementation. Again, someone, fresh eyes, someone else looking at it, someone else involved. And then there's the useful ignorance. The tester is pretty ignorant of how you've technically implemented this. More and more in Agile, you want the tester to be, at least, it needs to appreciate how you've technically implemented it, but he's generally quite ignorant and will use the system, how the customer is going to use it, because he's supposed to be talking and going out to customers and speaking to them. Okay? Testers. Agile testing is not new. It's all early 80s stuff. All this stuff that you're doing in Agile testing should have been done in all the other projects. It just wasn't. Agile just lends itself to being, you can apply the right principles at the right time. Virtually every single testing technique that is generally used in Agile should have been used anyway in any project that you've had. It's good for testing. Testing often isn't delivery focused, it's quality focused. I don't particularly like quality focused projects. I want something that's going to deliver. Quality, risk, information, they're all part of delivery. Delivery is about, and focusing testers, Agile actually focuses testers to enable delivery. Two types of testing. I'll come on to the quadrants, which many of you may have seen if you've ever read any Agile testing documentation. But generally, it's outfacing testing. That's actually typically what our testers are good at. Talking to the business, understanding the product, doing things through the UI. And it's the in-facing testing that we generally have problems with. The development, the technical testing under the bonnet, getting our testers to actually think outside the box and go, I don't actually have to wait for a UI. I'm going to try and do something under the box. I'm going to get some help. And that means everyone in the team is responsible for quality. Every single person. So when you get to the end of your iteration, you want to be looking to basically your development. Testing is going to be the thing that's squeezed. So instead of a developer getting on with some of the tasks for the next iteration potentially, if you've got a core key delivery, let's enable it so the developers can get involved in testing as well. And that breeds they'll think the next time that they actually have to get involved, they might actually go, do you know what, I'm going to write some better code because I don't have to do that testing again, not at the end. So, it sort of breeds quality. They actually think about what the testers are looking for. It actually enables them a little bit more. Customer interaction with the tester is absolutely paramount. They should be going out and looking for and speaking to the business. I think it's very, very core and key that the tester is doing that. And this testability is about developers facilitating testing, opening the doors, talking to the testers talking to the developers. Communication is absolutely key. We have to make sure that testability is at the forefront. We have to plan testing before we start development, and get right involved. The backlog program in the previous presentation about making sure you're on top of your backlog and planning backlog tasks in, that actually includes some testing backlog tasks that you should be able to plan. And then, obviously at the bottom, it is common sense. Nothing I will tell you today is nothing that you shouldn't already know about quality. It's about how to apply it. And unfortunately, there is an issue in testing, which is that testers, I would say 1 in 5, are absolutely petrified. Oh no, 4 out of 5 are petrified of Agile. You'll get your one Agile tester adopter who goes, yes, Agile testing, this is going to be so much fun. I love the technical side. I wanted to be a developer and it's all terrible. I wasn't very good at that, but now I can do some technical stuff. And the other 4 go, I'm from the business. Oh no. And that is something that we've got to get over. And they're the common problems that I tend to find, hence why my experience will talk about some of the problems that we have. So, David Thompson, got to be in it to win it. Super testers. David Thompson can do anything, and you've got to be in it to win it. Just means the tester, too many testers, too many times, you see, are still in their old way of thinking, sat outside the team, not interacting with the team. Sometimes that's not their fault, because when the people of Agile adopted, they have sat there and gone, right, we're going to do Agile, and the test team are just going to finish off their BAU tasks, and then we'll bring them in later. Unfortunately, by that time, it's too late. They may be 2 weeks behind. Code starts slipping, it's longer and longer and longer, and catching that up actually requires a hell of a lot of effort. Thinking about testing before you even adopt some sort of Agile is a very, very good idea. It's fixable, it always. But anyway, what you want your testers to be is you want them to be active. They want to be floor walkers. They want to be go-getters. You want them go out and find work. From a point of view where I've been involved in Agile teams, I'll have a tester come up and go, so what do I do next? Stood next to the Agile board with all the cards on. It's not, you want to make sure that they're enabled to have those testing tasks which are actually on the board. Sometimes I see, development teams they've got a lot of development tasks on that board, but none of the testing tasks have actually been put on there. It should be all part and parcel of being one team. With regards to issues, they should absolutely have an issue. If you find an issue as a tester, and that could be a defect or just an issue with your project, they should absolutely own it from start to finish. You push through issues, you own them, you own your pack of issues. You might not have the ability to fix the issue, but you own it, you make sure that it's continually tracking. It's not a grenade scenario where someone goes, right, found a defect, here you go fellas, I'm just on to the next one. People have to keep key of defect management. The exploratory side is, we want to, oh sorry, I missed one out there. Agile testers look for opportunities to go inside the system and pick up lots and lots of technical skills. I'm going to test this using the database. I don't need the UI. The UI is delivering this list of things. I might need to check that list of things can go into a 25 tab list, but it's returning 50 results. I need to check all those 50 results. Am I going to do that at UI? No, that's just crazy. I want to write some fitness tests. I want to get technical. I need someone from the development. I'm going to ask development. I'm going to put a card on the board which says, make me a test harness, because I can't do it myself. And unfortunately, we're in a world where the testers many of them have come from the business. Some of them have fallen out from development, but many have come from the business. And whilst they may be technically adept at certain things, dev are going to have to facilitate that. Exploratory is exactly as it says on the tin. I want testers to explore the system. Exploratory, I'll go on to the actual testing technique of exploratory later, but they just need to make sure that they're learning and forever improving everything that they do, and don't accept the norm. They are part of the team, they input into the design decisions, they come into all the stand-ups. They shouldn't have to be dragged into stand-ups, which often I find. And I maybe sound like I'm bitching about testers here. I'm not. It's just typically it's an old mentality that's still around, and I'm a little bit mad with testers because they haven't quite grabbed Agile as they should do. They should be in there ensuring the whole team is thinking about quality, and that means that all the developers have testing deliverables like unit tests, etc. And the testers should actually understand that and ensure that the levels that we've agreed are actually getting to, defect tolerances, all those sorts of things. They should be in at the start, if not before, because of the backlog planning that you need to do, but they should absolutely be in at the start. Still, far too many testing teams do. They do a 2-week sprint, and then we do 2 weeks of testing straight afterwards as part of the next sprint. It's not quite right. Categorically, you will probably have to do that in large organisations, simply because you're probably in some sort of BAU process where you may have to integrate into a further system. Absolutely, there may be testing tasks after that, but you know, to leave all that to the end and then the developer's on to something else and then they can't fix the defects in the same iteration, it's just not a great way to work for the testers themselves. They need to talk and they need to have brains. They need to talk effectively like a team socialite. They want to be talking to everybody they can get their hands on, to understand how the system is supposed to work. Not how it's been designed to work, not how it's been technically adapted to work, how it is supposed to work. That is, so they have to socialise with everybody. And again, not something that's typically renowned for testing people. Knowledge is, they just know, they need to achieve the knowledge of the product and just understand it. And then finally, the gatekeeper. Testers are gatekeepers, but they're more like doormen, not like the quality police, like a lot of testers seem to think that they are. You're not trying to stop something go live, you're trying to protect the business from harm and risk. So rather than, you know, you may have a trainer policy on the door, but if the guy behind is playing with a samurai sword, you let the guy with trainers in, he's all right, you know, he's not terrible, but there's worse things that we should be dealing with. So the testers need to actually be thinking about what's going to be the worst thing that's going to happen here, and how do we get this live, and how do we deliver? Okay, finding Agile testers. I'll quickly go through this. Basically, Agile just means we need to find good people. The processes of Agile just means, and I may say some things that are slightly, a little bit against the Agile methodology, but unfortunately, good people are great, but we don't have all of them all of the time. So we do need to formalise a little bit of process around them, you know, and ensure that, you know, that we challenge some of our maybe weaker members who don't want to get involved. We basically make them a scrum master, make it their job that they actually have to get involved, make them in charge of defect management, make them actually do a lot of reporting, and push them so they actually have to get involved with the team rather than sitting there and sending an email to the guy who's next to them. Interviewing of Agile testers, it's simply hiring for attitude. It's something that I think is absolutely massive. The guys who sit there and say, you know, I don't want to do any overtime or anything like that, you know, I'm always busy on weekends. You know, be flexible with them, but let them be flexible with you as well. Big question whenever I've spoken anywhere else is ISEB, ISTQB. Is it worth it? It's like a driving test. It is absolutely worth it. All the techniques that the people learn in those tests are valid. They're just probably in the wrong order and maybe missing a few technical slants in it. Everything that they learn is valid. Do I think it's an essential for a tester? Absolutely not. Do I think it's desirable? Yes, it is, because it means that you have an idea and you understand basic terminology of testing. But it's not something that I would say was an essential. Bloggers and book readers are absolutely brilliant. You know, the guys who are actually going to the gatherings, getting in all the information and working things out. That's excellent. I mean, someone once said, I had a book on my desk, working somewhere, and they said, why is that book on your desk? Do you not know how to do your job? It was a book on testing. It's just like, not really. It's how you actually supposed to, you know, learn and continue and move yourself forward. And a good way of doing it is just, you know, put some technical and testing tests together. You know, something that it doesn't. A lot of testing interviews are about talking to people, which is all well and good, but some high-level technical tests are always good. Okay, helping your test team. Planning properly is a good idea. You know, making sure that the boards are kept up to date, that you actually do have your cards on the board, that you actually do have an 8-week plan that, you know, that actually extends, but I'll go on about a bit more about planning in a moment. Estimation, again, I'm going to cover, but listen to people, understand your estimates. One of the worst things in the world about testing is it's full of contingency. And in Agile, contingency is not really part of it. You know, you need to be thinking about velocity, not contingency. The flexible work, Agile burnout and flexible working are, there's all the heroes. We've got a team of 30 people, we've got heroes in that team. Let's make the non-heroes step up to the plate. Certainly in the testing arena, I've seen, you know, lots of general burnout, and burnout isn't very good for the rest of the team. It can take quite a few people down, and you lose some delivery. And the key thing is make sure that communication, especially with your off-site teams and teams that are in different rooms, and make sure that your test team is actually sitting in with your Agile team. Those comms are really important. A lot of QA teams struggle with the loss of identity in Agile. They go, well, hang on, I'm just going to report to this guy who wasn't my manager before. Is there a place for QA managers in Agile? Yes, absolutely, there is, but it's a very, very different kind of role. The blame culture, you know, I'm going to find me the tester that didn't find this bug, I'm going to break your legs, has to be removed. And should be removed because it is a team effort. You know, the developer, the analyst, whoever, you know, it doesn't actually matter. Why did the process go wrong? And understanding that by the means of retrospectives. I think it'll probably be spoken about on numerous times in that room and in this room that retrospectives are probably the most important thing that you will do in Agile. Learning from your experiences, learning from your mistakes, learning from your successes is absolutely fundamentally key. Continuous improvement, just quickly on that, people forget that there are people involved in Agile and that they'll just love the work and it'll just keep rolling on. They've still got to keep an eye on how people actually, you know, how you manage them through that process. And give them a tester's guide. I can email the general tester's guide out to anybody who wants it, but, you know, give it empowering your testers to say things like, you know, you have the right to bring up issues of quality. You own the stand-up where you're a tester and you're talking to the product owner. You know, basically pushing almost like a list of things that you should be doing as part of your day-to-day job, just to help them and guide them along. Because you've got to think a lot of the testing guys have actually been in very stock. They just test right at the end of the process. They spend a lot of time writing tests. They don't have to think reactively or responsively, and they're just part of a process. And then they just get picked on. So they just give them a bit of help, basically. Okay, management planning. Do I need a test policy? Yes, you do. Do I need a strategy? Yes, you do. These two documents will never get changed. They will be added to it as part of retrospectives if it's required. But, you know, 2-page test policy, 2-page test strategy, basically detailing how you are going to test in Agile. And that is the responsibility of everybody in Agile, including developers, including the project managers, including the business analysts. You absolutely do need a test strategy and approach because to understand how you're going to apply that in Agile. Do I need a test plan? Well, yes. Do you need to write one for every iteration? Maybe, maybe not. The test plan itself sits on the board, the Agile board, which is fantastic because that's what it's for. I can't speak more about making sure that the testers are on that board. And you know, that the acceptance tests are on the back of all the cards. And if there is something which is a testing task which is outside of the acceptance tests that are on the back of the cards, that they go on the board as well. And when they need a harness building, that generally should be on the back of the acceptance test cards. If it's not, it goes on the board. Regression tests go on the boards. You know, most of your regression testing should be automated, but some of it is likely that it's not. So, make sure that you're recording all these tasks. Okay? Don't use contingency. What happens with contingency is that it masks why you have problems. Because people go, well, there's some rubbish stuff happening, so we'll add 20% on the end. How's that sound? What you should be doing is, there's some rubbish stuff, this would normally take me this, but here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that are going to stop me. I'm going to reduce my velocity down to 65%. And they go, well, you're only working at 65%. Well, I would do, and then that actually challenges people to go out and get some help, because it's testing that is normally like the abscess. It might not actually be the problem, but it's where everyone sees all the problems arising, because again, the testers are just getting battered. They're the ones that see the problems with the environments, they see build problems, they see pretty much everything, that there is to see on a project. And it's a forever growing test team, which is consistently outstripping your budgets, and is synonymous of there being problems in your general project. And it's not normally with the test team. There will be problems in the test team, but it's often, poor business decisions. The release telling is a massive, massive problem, which causes huge problems for testers. So it's those things that you can deal with in your retrospectives and actually provide evidence. Like, if you have environment problems, get something up on the board, get something visual. Don't just send emails, don't just raise defects. Put a piece of paper up on the board. How much time am I losing when my environment goes down? Is it an hour, 2 hours, or half a day, or greater than half a day? Tick it off, get it on there, and soon you actually have a piece of evidence that says, I've just lost all this time. When you log a defect, often you don't actually record how much time you're losing. It's very, very difficult to do that. So get something visual up there about how you're losing your time, which is, with regards to the defect management log, it's definitely a good idea to have a defect management tool, but the issue log could be stored in the same place, but I like the visual boards. Make sure that in your stand-ups, we see how many defects we have to fix in this iteration, and make sure that people can very, very visually see defects against how much time we've got left. And the actual test management side is about removing blockers and issues. It's not so much about the test manager planning and babysitting his testers into coming and getting work off it. Yes, he absolutely knows what work should have been done, what work should have been done when, but he doesn't have to chase that. What he has to chase is the issues, the blockers, and everything that is stopping his team and to be honest, the wider team of the wider Agile team about how we're going to get this thing live and how we're going to deliver it. A test manager is sometimes very, very good as a Scrum Master. And it actually does suit them very, very well, because they do like the process, they do like the organisation style, but they're actually very, very good at removing issues and blockers. Okay. See, I should have had cards, not the big bits of paper. Okay, right, test estimation, again, is part of the Agile process. People must estimate within the Agile process, certainly for testing, and for anything. It should go on the board. It has to be part of it. It has to be on the cards. The general problems with estimation: they're too long. You are a pessimist. They're too short. You're an eternal optimist. You haven't understood, what possible impacts there are, and the estimates are taken as actuals. It's going to take me 4 days to test this. It took me 8, and someone goes, well, that's far too long. That's far too long. Make it take you 2 days. Well, that's actually going to devalue anything that I've ever spoken to you. And the next time I'll say it's 2 days for a 1 day, and then you might actually pick it up and actually empower your test team to actually give some proper estimates. Challenge them if they come up with something ridiculous, but empower them and make sure that they're actually doing it. Because from generally what I've seen within certainly the Agile test teams is that the life cycle of that test estimation is that they pretty much have to guess in the first instance of this project. They may not have the tools available, so they go, yeah, this bit will take me 5 days to test. Actually, it takes 7.5 days, because they had to set up the test environments. They didn't really think, they thought it might be a little bit easier than what it was. The developers weren't available, you know, so the actual estimates are quite, you know, they're either or, they could be one way or the other. The closer you get, you understand more and more about your project as you go through, and you become, you're guessing, then you become informed, and as towards the end of your towards the end of the project, you need to be looking to get some really, really tight estimates and learn from things like the retrospectives and making sure that, you know, when we actually calculate and make sure how much testing time we've actually put into each of these items, because if testing is starting to extend, then you have a problem and it needs to be fixed, and capturing those in retrospectives enables you to actually pick up and fix problems on the hop, rather than having to wait till the end of a project and going, well, you know, the test budget was far, far too big. We can deal with these things after 2 weeks, not after 2-3 months. And, you know, effective test planning will help you with that. Meet, record, and action, the MRA type scan, basically a brain scan of your project to make sure that you are on track, on budget, with your testing, and making sure that you are understanding your action in everything that comes out of the estimates. Okay. Management metrics. Reporting is massively important because we are the giver of information in test. You still need you need to report in your Scrum meetings, but it's usually testing that gives the out-facing report, the project health checks, things that make the project understand, you know, how things are going. And unfortunately, many of us still need things written down on paper. You know, talking about a project in a Scrum is absolutely amazing and brilliant, and it is absolutely required. But there's sometimes no substitute for that cold, hard fact on a piece of paper, which is a great thing that you get out of testing. You know, test coverage is very important. Writing a little summary about the area, what the big problems were, you know, what's great about this piece of code, how it works. Automated versus manual is how many automated tests have I actually created? Numerous, and it's a good way of forcing automation into the forefront as well, because if everyone keeps seeing a 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 along the automated channel, well, what are we doing with this test automation? Why are we not doing test automation? Sometimes you absolutely have to do manual. There is no replacing manual testing, because sometimes we have to think, you know, we haven't created perfect AI that's going to create our perfect systems. We'd probably be all out of a job if we'd done that. Passed versus failed as well. You know, how much of this has passed? Is it a qualified pass? You know, sometimes things fail, but they don't fail horribly. They just fail not as the way we liked it. Defects are a byproduct of testing. It doesn't mean that if you have no defects, you could either have a terrible system because you haven't done any testing, or you could have an amazing system because you've done 1 million tests and it was all brilliant, and you need to take your hats off to your developers because you've got an amazing team. So to actually understand the number and the fix rate and the severity of these defects, you have to have all three. Because if you're not fit, if you've got 300 defects outstanding and they've been outstanding for 6 months, and your fix rate is 10 a week, then you're going to be in problem. But you're going to have problems by the end of your project. So you should be looking to. But if you've got 300 defects and you're fixing 250 a week, you're like, well, you're not as concerned. It's all about information and making sure that's the case. And the burn rate and velocity. How many tests are we getting through? Is that dropping off? Why is it dropping off? What do our retrospectives say about why the burn rate of our testing is dropping down? Why are we not doing as many tests? Testing do have an opinion on, can we ship this code? They give opinions. Testing give opinions. You may choose to ignore test opinions. Sometimes, you know, the tester who just goes, we're all going to die, it's all terrible, there's, you know, 4 low defects at the bottom of this pile, it looks terrible. They're not the best people to engage in whether this should go live or not. It needs to just be cold, hard information. There you go. Let's try and remove all the opinions. That's what it's about. Do you have enough knowledge product owner to go live or PM? Done is an interesting one in testing. Dev complete, that means it's done, is often something that I come across. They go, right, development of finished coding, that means it's done. No. That means it's probably 70% complete, and it's probably, your testing's been going on far too late, and it's probably not integrated into your process. The acceptance testing and the creation of cards for acceptance testing will help this. And the fact is, if you're getting to the end of a sprint and you go, well, we've got 2 hours, we've got this retrospective meeting, do you know what, we'll cancel it because we've got about half a day's worth of coding for 4 people to do. Let's get it in, let's get it done. We can do that, but the chances are, if you're saying it's half a day, it's unlikely to be, you know, half a day of just coding. It's going to be some testing and maybe some more thought, and maybe you'll come up with another requirement. So we need to be very, very sensible about how we tackle those bits right at the end of the project, and how, when we think as a development team, how they're going to impact our test team when we give them code right at the end, and that they can't, nobody can go to the retrospective and we don't learn anything from it. We still have proper exit criteria in Agile. We move from sprint to sprint, but dev complete will have many aspects. And I'm not going to go into all the dev complete because the developers should know lots and lots about that. The dev complete will include, you know, build scripts, you know, whether the code's been checked in, whether it's been reviewed, all those sorts of things. They're all tests. They're all part of testing. And testers do need to understand that all the checkpoints for development code has been done. Most of that, I find very few testers who get themselves involved in what development has actually done. And this is why testing should be very, very keen to keep up with unit test coverage and their levels, the levels that they've reached in unit test coverage. If someone said we're going to reach 70%, testers must understand what that 70% means for certain areas, what testing has gone on, and how many tests have they created. Because if they understand that, they actually might have to do less testing. They might not have to do any testing at all, because it's a piece of code which is embedded into the system. It's not impacting anything else. It's been internally changed. The unit tests cover it. You can find many, many testers who will just over-test lots and lots of code, which has already been tested by unit, component, all those kinds of tests, because they haven't understood. They've gone, well, I'm still going to need to test it. Well, but why? Because, well, I can't really trust development. Well, have you asked them? Have you spoken to them? They need to make sure that they're talking to them in Agile. Acceptance tests, pass or a qualified pass, we have to have those on the back of the cards. And they can be functional tests. You know, the typical functional testing is unit testing. It is writing fitness, fixtures, under the bonnet API testing, could be UI testing. The business, there may be some business testing that you need to do with regards to, you know, involving your product owners. My acceptance test is making my product owner come and sit here and do some base UAT with me. That means it's going to be a definition of done, and whatever that comes onto, I'll come onto that. And the technical test as well. Does it need performance testing? And I have left performance testing completely out of this because I knew I was going to waffle on relatively. And I've got 15 minutes left, so I'm going to have to be quick. But the actual performance testing, you know, you may need to put some kind of component performance testing into your Agile, or full performance testing if you're a standalone Agile team. Is there more than one level of done? There is. Most people have a different level of done dependent on where they are. You know, you've got done, development complete, you've got done, development complete with some acceptance tests, you've got done, development complete with some integration tests into the main system, and you've got done, which has a multitude of other things that everybody sticks on the end, especially in large organisations. And the business, they go, well, you said it was done 6 weeks ago. So managing that message to the business and making them have an understanding of done, certainly, and test, it's usually testing or some form of testing that actually is the stopper in between all those levels of done, which is the thing that needs communicating. Right, talk about actual sort of Agile testing. Has anyone actually seen the quadrant diagram before, yeah? Anyone? No? Right, well this is the Agile testing quadrants, and it's just broken down into all the things that you should be undertaking as part of your Agile testing. Developers own Q1 as far as I'm concerned. I would actually happily give my testing budget to, and this seems very silly of someone who runs a testing company giving budget to developers, but part of the testing budget is in development. I would give that to get better quality of code. Manoeuvring, the time that they go, right, we've got this amount of time to create some great code, but we're not running our unit test. We can get to 20% coverage. Well, I'd actually rather get 50% coverage, enable me to do less testing at times when it's less critical, and you get more coverage. So developers own Q1. Developers facilitate Q2. That is all year. As many manual tests as you can. So again, I'm giving budget away. And it seems a little ridiculous that I'm passing this budget away to developers. I'll just get these up on the board, then you can read them. And then the other types of testing are purely owned by testing. They are, the exploratory, getting the scenarios, getting the business involved, and generally performance and load testing. Although developers are very, they can write nice harnesses and things like that. Generally, find performance experts and non-functional testing experts are actually, unfortunately, the most expensive ones of the entire set of the quadrants. They're the ones that it does actually take some core skills and core knowledge of actually what it takes to load test, what is a performance test. Generally in Agile, what you do is benchmarking in performance. You don't particularly want a full, massively working, massive, huge environment. You want to be doing it componentized. You want to take it right down to as smaller chunks as you can to performance test. Development must facilitate testing. The exploratory testing, I've gone on about to explain about acceptance testing, but the exploratory testing is, a lot of people say, oh, that means you just explore. Dave's done settlement for 2 hours, that's good. That's good enough for me. It's still about recording. Dave spends 10 minutes, he writes 25 scenarios about how he's going to do settlement, then he tests it, then he gives it to someone else and says, what is Dave's 25 tests, they've got no defects, he's quite happy, but Dave forgot about 2 things. Because he's listed them, people begin to know. So exploratory testing, it is a brilliant technique for finding missing requirements, but you still have to know the requirements that you're actually testing in the first place. So it's not about just going and exploring. There's still got to be a plan. There's still got to be an understanding about what it is. You're not going to write a load of test scripts for it, because that means that you need to go easy on that area of system testing. You shouldn't be doing all that, but you do still need to absolutely record what you're doing. I like this diagram. It sort of basically shows where we should be almost applying test budget in an Agile project. A lot of it in component and unit testing. Doing JUnit tests, dev-owned, but validated by tests. Tests need to understand what is going on here. Then a middle layer, which is, the out-facing APIs, things that potentially things that dev have created, which are actually going to open the system up to a tester who is going to have to get more technical. He's going to have to write, SQL scripts. He's going to have to write fitness tests. He's going to have to get involved in getting in under the technology. And as you can see, these get more. The type of automation gets more and more brittle. If you're doing UI test automation, and 5 years ago, I used to be all in here. I was all in here, loved it. And unfortunately for me, I had an epiphany, my Agile epiphany, which meant that I am going to have to dig under the bonnet and do better things with test automation, because it's not good enough just to do the UI. There's too much. If an automated test needs to test the UI, absolutely, get it to do it, but it's for a UI specific test, not something that's involved with data or algorithms, which are actually part of the system. These should be tested down here, not up here by a manual tester. You can do so much more and so much more efficiently down here. So you want to be concentrating a great deal of budget here, lots of budget here, and just not as much up here, because that's a lot of your integration tests with your wider business. By this point, you should be in a very, very confident position that you don't need as much of that. And one of those biggest crimes of that test automation is the fact that test automation, I've gone into organisations where they've gone, we don't do any unit testing. And they go, all right, you don't have any unit tests. Well, no, we have unit tests. We write them for every project, and then we throw them away after we finish. And that is the worst crime ever. An automated test that never ever gets run. And even worse, and there's another crime, which is an automated test that gets run all the time, and then the manual testers run the testing again. They have to understand what has gone on, what has preceded them, what has gone on before them. Finally, a few thoughts on generally Agile. Those documented requirements, big list, product backlog list, nice easy Excel spreadsheet, let's manage this. It makes it a lot easier for testers to plan what they're going to do. Run those wikis, common knowledge, not common sense. Common sense is great, we need good people, we want people with common sense. But unfortunately, not everybody has the required, thimble full of common sense that we need, so we need to make things common knowledge. So run wikis, make things obvious to people. Keep going with your meetings. Just make things absolutely obvious to people about how they're supposed to engage in your team. Talked about the other two. With regard, I'm not going to go into fixed price work because I think Ian probably will talk about that in his accounting point, but that early delivery, get your testers engaged in getting it delivered early, tell them about delivery, and go and give them quality measures that enable them to deliver, quality measures that enable to deliver. Don't go, I want 95% of all tests passed, I want there to be 0 critical defects. There needs to be some more thought than a generic thing. And back to the everyone must muck in, right down to, everyone should muck in and make sure that testing is part of everything. Project manager, product owner, when the test team's up against it, let's get them in, let's get everybody in. Let's not think about the next product. Let's get everybody testing, get them realising what testing's all about. And that is just a quick manifesto of testing. It is people over process. Good people, you need less process. It's automated over manual. It's common knowledge over common sense, and it is exploratory over scripted testing. All these things will enable you to do better Agile testing. It just means that you have to record what you were doing, because you are the information giver. So, okay. There are my thank yous. And I'll show you the book, if I can. I think I'm just pretty much done. If any of you have seen that book, get it. It's absolutely awesome. They are fantastic writers and fantastic speakers as well, so if you ever get the chance to go and see them or speak to them, I don't mind emailing it out either, so if anyone wants it, that is a brilliant book. Okay, and that is me.
Thanks, Gav.
I do apologise. When I did this last night, it took 1 hour and 20 minutes, so I've tried to squeeze it down. I would have wanted to talk about some of the actual formal techniques a little bit more, but this.
What we are doing, Gav, we're going to be able to post all the presentations and the videos online as well. So it's going to be an extended version also.
Yeah, it's about half a day.
We'll email out all the links as well, and if you follow us on Twitter, we're out there as well, so it's all out for you. It'll be early next week, just by the time we've processed all the video. And up next is Ian Brooks on Agile Teams. You've got a short break. Just grab yourself a refreshment if you want, stretch your legs.
If anyone wants to just come up and speak to me about any questions.
There's some Gav's cards on the reception desk as well.